With virtue to heaven and beyond. Bhikkhuni Tisarani. No fire burns like desire. No grip holds tighter than hatred. No net binds like delusion. No stream is like the stream of craving. Dhammapada 251. Pancha Sila, the five virtues. Panatipata viramani sikkapadam samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule to abstain from killing living beings. Adinadana viramani sikkapadam samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule to abstain from stealing. Kamesu miccācara viramani sikkapadam samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule to abstain from sexual misconduct. Musavada viramani sikkapadam samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule to abstain from false speech. Suramiraya maja pamadatana viramani sikkapadam samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule to abstain from intoxicating drinks and drugs causing heedlessness. For countless times, humans have lived in a deluded state that distorts reality. Many philosophers, poets, painters, scientists, and deep thinkers have grappled with the question of what it means to be human and the nature of existence. The answers of Gautama Buddha and the methods he provided help to address these questions. And even more importantly, dukkha, mental suffering, can be overcome. There are three main characteristics that define the path: sila, virtue, wholesome ethical conduct; samadhi, the unification of the mind with a single object, the so-called one-pointedness of the mind; citta-ekaggata; panya, wisdom, insight, clear seeing, clear vision. A virtuous life filled with gratitude, generosity, compassion, and wisdom is worth striving for. In this way, a person is fulfilled in their humanity. It means living kindly, to be a friend to oneself and to the world. Mettānisaṃsa Sutta. Thus I have heard. Once the Blessed One was staying in Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One addressed the monks. "Monks, Venerable Sir," the monks replied. The Blessed One said this: "Monks, if one has developed, cultivated, frequently practiced, made loving kindness the driving force and foundation, strengthened it, nurtured it, and brought it to its completion, one can expect 11 benefits." Which 11? One sleeps in peace, one wakes in peace, one has no bad dreams, one is dear to human beings, one is dear to non-human beings. The deities protect one. Fire, poison, and weapons cannot harm one. The mind gains concentration quickly. One's complexion is serene. One dies without confusion. If penetrating no higher, one is headed for the Brahma worlds. Monks, if one has developed, cultivated, frequently practiced, made loving kindness the driving force and foundation, strengthened it, nurtured it, and brought it to its completion, one can expect these 11 benefits. Thus spoke the Blessed One. The monks were delighted and rejoiced at the words of the Blessed One. Anguttara Nikāya 11:16. Just as the benefits of loving kindness are described in the Mettānisaṃsa Sutta, the practice of virtue has the same effect and is not separate from loving kindness. The full development of a wholesome, virtuous way of life cannot be realized without a compassionate heart and wisdom. The practice of virtue without these qualities can even lead to fanaticism or a dull adherence to rules, which blocks vitality and joy in life. Thus, in our efforts to be freed from painful mental states, we ought to know and understand how we should practice. We need strength and motivation for our practice, as well as the understanding of how the mind functions. The first verses of the Dhammapada are: mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If one speaks and acts with a corrupt mind, suffering follows, just as the wheel follows the foot of the ox. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If one speaks and acts with a pure mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs. We should reflect on these verses. Reflection means deep contemplation. When we understand the meaning of these verses, we will integrate virtue into our lives with motivation and strength. The clear distinction between wholesome and unwholesome mental states is very important at this point. This means differentiating between what is healthy and unhealthy. Wholesome means healing mental health. Healthy mental states are free from craving, aversion, and ignorance. In the beginning, we can first distinguish what is good for us and what is less good. Killing living beings or harming them is not a wholesome action. This is obvious for most people. Yet when we lack clarity, we might exclude some animals such as mosquitoes, ticks, spiders, and so on. Conscious killing of living beings, even if they are small creatures, has an effect on the mind, a karmic effect. Karma means action. When we never harm, neither with words, actions, nor even in thought, the fear of being harmed dissolves. Sleep becomes more peaceful, the mind more relaxed and still. The investigation of reality and the realization that the world and all its contents are impermanent is called insight. All our efforts and practice culminate in liberating insight. The liberation of the mind, nibbana, is based on virtuous, wholesome mental states. Practice page. First virtue. I make the resolution not to kill any living being. Just as I do not want to be harmed, other living beings also wish to avoid injury. Just as I am aware that staying alive requires all my strength, and that it is the most important thing in this life, other living beings have the same need. If one examines and understands the forces of cause and effect, or even if one has not yet fully grasped them, but trusts in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, one will take causality and karma seriously and strive diligently to avoid killing or harming living beings. Because we are sentient beings, we can comprehend that harming other sentient beings is deeply painful. This reflection and realization can also motivate us to internalize ahimsa, nonviolence. Second virtue. I make the resolution not to take anything that has not been given. On a basic level, this means not stealing. For us, as people connected to goodness, this is very obvious. We know that being separated from the things that help us in life and that we have worked hard to acquire, such as a home, bags, money, clothing, a bicycle, or a car, causes harm and brings suffering. Likewise, taking things from other living beings, such as food, or separating animal babies from their families, are also unwholesome actions that lead to suffering. Even when we unconsciously or consciously take small things that have not been given to us, for example, taking a sheet of copy paper at work, a pen, food from the kitchen, or a spoon from a restaurant, all these small actions have an impact on our mind. In the mind, distrust toward others begins to grow. and we live with the constant suspicion that others might also take things from us, or we are burdened by guilt. As a result, the mind becomes constrained, anxious, narrow, and restless. On a mental level, taking what is not given also includes stealing ideas or inventions that others have created through their creativity. This too leads to states of suffering, restlessness, pain, and distress, birth, aging, sickness, and death. Third virtue. Make the resolution to refrain from sexual misconduct. If we handle our senses wisely, do not misuse them, and do not lose ourselves in pleasure and desire, then craving loses its power of delusion. Sexual energy is part of life energy. This force is sustained up until the threshold of awakening. Only upon reaching the fruition of anagami, the non-returner, is sensual desire, kama-raga, kama-tanha, completely dissolved. Along the path it gradually weakens. Sexual desire belongs to craving and is one of the strongest forces of attraction in life. Through training the mind, we can observe the arising and passing of lust until it loses its power and dissolves. When we live in relationships and establish a family, wanting to have children, and handling it wisely, sexual energy is the cause of this. However, if we misuse it, it brings great suffering, infidelity, abuse, anger, and harm, all of which add further suffering to life. Fourth virtue. I make the resolution to refrain from the wrong use of speech. Speech is the more outward expression of thought. When mindfulness is still weak and the law of cause and effect is not yet understood, speech is often used as a weapon for manipulation, personal gain, to harm others, to oppress, to destroy peace, or to create peace. The accumulated energy of dissatisfaction, frustration, and inner pressure is often released through speech, bringing a temporary sense of relief. But when used unskillfully, it causes harm. A guided conversation in therapy, led by a trained person, can bring healing. However, expressing our frustrations in an unfiltered way to friends, family members, or acquaintances, people who are easily influenced and unprepared, can create unnecessary burdens. It can affect them negatively and increase unwholesome mental states in both speaker and listener, rather than dissolving them. Words have great power. Speech that is connected to a kind and gentle mind brings healing both to ourselves and to others. If we observe our mind, we will experience this effect firsthand and find motivation to cultivate mindfulness in speech. Gossiping, idle chatter, judging others, and non-constructive conversations consume a great deal of energy. Instead of being beneficial, they create unwholesome mental states. On the other hand, wholesome and kind speech brings peace, eases situations, and nurtures the growth of positive emotions. These in turn support wholesome thoughts, which then encourage wholesome actions in the world. Fifth virtue. I make the resolution to refrain from intoxicating and mind-clouding substances. Under the influence of intoxicating substances, the control center of the brain is disrupted. The ethical conduct that many people uphold in daily life is endangered by this loss of control. However, the consequences of our actions remain. In a court of law, intoxication may sometimes lead to a reduced sentence, but karmic consequences do not abide by legal codes. We must recognize the seriousness of our situation. Even without intoxicants, we are already in a state of delusion, and overcoming this requires great effort to attain clarity of mind. If we further dull our consciousness, we have no chance. Suffering will increase, and the peace of Nibbana will drift further and further away. We are intelligent beings, and we should use the beauty that comes with human birth to find true happiness. This beauty lies in intelligence. May we apply it wisely. Suffusion with the divine abidings. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with gladness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with equanimity, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, and without ill will. Anguttara Nikaya 366. Gratitude. Gratitude makes the mind gentler, kinder. The aggressive, pushy, self-centered perception of the ego relaxes. The battle for first place loses its significance, and with it, its destructive power. Practice page. Upon waking, the body is perceived. I know that I am lying down. I feel my legs, hands, torso, and head, and take 3 conscious breaths all the way to the abdomen. I am grateful that I have woken up and that the body is functioning. Now I become aware of the space around me. I am conscious of the ceiling, the doors, the walls, the windows that give the space its shape. I am grateful that I have a roof over my head, a bed in which I can sleep. I nurture thoughts of gratitude for being alive, for being safe. The mind must be cared for, just as the body is cared for, to remain healthy. I am grateful for the situation in which I find myself at this very moment. If the circumstances are difficult, I continually direct my gratitude back to the present moment. Most of the time, the present is not as painful as our thoughts make it, laden with all sorts of stories about the future and the past. One can maintain gratitude in every moment of life. For example, during a meal. Before we eat, we can contemplate the food. How did it arrive on our plate? The people who sowed the seeds in the earth, who cultivated the fields, watered and cared for them, who ensured the plants grew and ripened. Gratitude. the people involved in the harvest, the ones who pick the crops, the ones who transport the food, the tractor drivers, the truck drivers, the people who sell fuel at gas stations for the machines, the ones who maintain the harvesting machines, the ones who built them, and so on. Gratitude. When we eat, we feel gratitude for the many beings involved in the food chain. The animal world is involved too, as well as insects and small mammals. Many perish during the harvest and even during the cleaning of the food. It's impossible to receive food into our hands without consequences. The consequence of life is dukkha. That is life. Eating then takes on a completely different quality when we realize that it is not something to be taken for granted. Even if we have a lot of money, without the people who cultivate, process, sell, and bring the food to us, we would not be able to nourish ourselves. We are interdependent, not separate in this world. When we become deeply aware of this, our heart is touched and gratitude springs from the source of wisdom. Gratitude is a relative of generosity. The qualities of the mind that develop alongside virtue are like petals of a flower. No matter which petal one looks at, one always sees the whole flower. So it is with a cultivated, radiant heart, filled with all these qualities. You will witness countless connections arising. When you look around, the people who live with you and beside you are the conditions and causes for you being alive, healthy, and experiencing joy. Gratitude can be extended, practiced, and perfected in all areas of life, along with mettā, the Brahma-viharas, and awakening. Awakening requires courage, the transformation of old habits, the transformation of the mind, demands consistency, determination, and courage. Be creative and extend gratitude to the joyful and unjoyful parts of your life. For example, gratitude for parents, gratitude for teachers, gratitude for family and friends, and even for those who are hostile to us. From them we can learn much, practicing mettā, patience, forgiveness, gratitude. Gratitude helps dissolve the separation between the world and the self. Inside and outside become one. When gratitude is fully developed, it is so present in every encounter, like a thirsty person in the desert, receiving a glass of water and feeling thankful for it. So does a clear mind experience life. Gratitude fosters respectful interaction with one another. We can only be respectful when we become aware that we are interdependent. There is also a form of respect that comes from upbringing, yet deep respect arises only when we realize that we are dependent on each other. A grateful and respectful mindset toward others awakens a healthy dignity and appreciation for oneself. This heals the victim role mentality. Generosity. Generosity is a richness of the mind. People who are generous have access to creativity, goodwill, and the willingness to work toward true peace. The mind moves from constriction toward open vastness. An open view of the world frees one from constraints, fears, and delusions. A self-centered perception darkens the mind. The openness that generosity brings results in a radiant mind. The development of kindness and goodwill, mettā in Pali, maitri in Sanskrit, is rooted in generosity. Mudita, Pali, Sanskrit. Joy in others' happiness also arises from generosity. These two Brahmaviharas are deeply connected to generosity. The other two aspects, karuna and upekkha, compassion and equanimity, cannot fully develop if mettā and mudita remain undernourished. To be generous means to have a great, open heart. Practice page. In the early morning, upon waking, I become aware of the body, the space, the breath, and am grateful for life. From the wisdom that we are all connected, and that all beings, just like me, have sensations, feelings, fears, worries, sorrow, hunger. We wish for all beings to be happy, free from worries, free from sorrow, free from fear. This is a moment of generosity that heals our hearts. Every wholesome thought brings wholesome feelings, and so too does gratitude, generosity, kind, gentle thoughts bring healing for us and for the world. Wishing for others to be happy in thoughts, words, and through the expression of our actions is the best medicine against the obstacles that block the heart. Sometimes we fail to see that we are feeling envy or jealousy. When we look inward and notice discomfort in our stomach or heart connected to a person, we can practice thoughts of generosity and wish that they are happy, that they succeed, and that they are not separated from all good things. We should, however, not compare ourselves to others, whether we are better, worse, or the same. Thoughts of generosity should be free from any corruption. When we observe the heart, we will notice that the painful tensions and discomforts in the body begin to loosen, because generosity is letting go. The healing we undergo through practice, the transformation, is a gradual letting go of everything we have grasped and tried to hold on to. Holding on, pulling at ourselves, consumes energy, blocks energy, and leads to death, to birth and death, to birth, sickness, aging, and death. Remaining with an open, generous, compassionate heart leads to mental calm and is the gateway to insight. Helping others in daily activities, for example, opening doors, carrying a stroller or a shopping bag, giving up a seat on the bus for those in need, the elderly, pregnant women, the sick, children, the weaker. If we look around, we always find an opportunity to be generous. What is important is that no expectation clouds the purity of the action. If we expect a reward, praise, or a return, the power of generosity is limited, and the result is disappointment, a feeling of being exploited, and powerlessness. If we practice virtue correctly, the power of life will flow undisturbed, and the mind will become very strong. We gain enormous energy. Some may ask, what does generosity have to do with virtue? How can one protect life, not kill, if one is not generous? How can one not take what is not given, if one is not grateful for what one has? When we reflect, when we think about these wholesome states of mind, we will recognize the connections and the interdependence of all these good habits, and the puzzle will become a full picture. Devotion. Gratitude and generosity include devotion. Devotion means to overcome the self-centered perception that seeks to protect itself, but out of ignorance leads to more harm, separation, and dark mental states. The solution is our intention. The intention behind all actions, thoughts, speech, and behavior is the main focus in everything we do. When this is balanced with what is good for oneself and for others, it leads to a happy existence. Being content with what one has. Being humble when we are well gifted by life with talents, wealth, and fortunate circumstances. Not being arrogant, but humble and grateful. Being content with what life has bestowed upon us. Whether it is much or little, whether it is beautiful or otherwise, contentment. To be content is to devote oneself to peace, to be at peace with the moment. Mindfulness, in Pali sati, in Sanskrit smriti, is a term that we have heard often in recent years and has even found a place in research. Sati is the alignment of the mind with the present moment, with the activities being carried out. It is also a form of memory that characterizes mindfulness. When one is consciously engaged in something, such as taking a book from the shelf, one will be able to return it to the same spot after reading. If one places keys, house keys, or car keys in a specific spot, one will later remember it. Are the keys in the pocket? And if so, in which one? When the mind is focused on the future or the past while acting in the present, we're unaware. We find ourselves wondering where we left the item. In the environment where we live, where we move, chaos arises. On the other hand, if we are very controlled and direct our attention to things, but the mind clings to that intention, the order we create becomes a prison. The controller will control itself, the mind will tighten, and dissatisfaction will rise. Sammasati, right mindfulness, is free from all these negative, unwholesome states of mind. Even sati that is not connected to virtue and does not rely on wisdom can deform virtue and lead to the fanatical following of rules. The mind becomes tight, unhappy, and unwholesome states of mind increase. The liberating mindfulness known as sammasati is a mental state that is completely present, free from desire, aversion, and delusion. When the mind comes into contact with an object, it always has the true nature of that object present. The objects are impermanent, fleeting, not lasting, and without a self-core. In the mind that has established sammasati, this view of the world is uninterrupted. As a result, the mind does not cling to the world, to things, people, objects, or opinions. Sammasati is worth striving for. It brings peace and liberation. Virtue is the foundation for every spiritual transformation. The body shrivels with the years, becoming wrinkled and weak, but the trained mind becomes radiant, pure, and powerful. A person can live peacefully if they integrate sila, samadhi, and panya as a path of practice into their life. They can free themselves from all mental suffering when they realize sila, samadhi, and panya. Nibbana. Arhabata nikamata yunjata buddhasasane dunata machanusenam nalagarham va kunjaro yo imasmim dhamma vinaye apamato vihesati pahaya jati samsaham dukkha santam karisatiti. Arunavati Sutta, Sanyutta Nikaya 6:14. Awaken your energy. Stay away from impurities. Strive to follow the Buddha's training. Overcome the army of Mara as an elephant crushes a bamboo hut. Whoever diligently follows the path of Dhamma and discipline will, after completing the cycle of rebirth, put an end to suffering. Dukkha pata chani dukkha, bhaya pata chani bhaya, sukha pata chani sukha, ontu sabi pipanino. May all beings who have fallen into suffering be free from suffering. Those who have fallen into danger be free from danger. And those who have fallen into grief be free from grief.